of a politician from the Mandela and Mbeki administrations a long time ago, and it was the most extraordinary briefing today. And my colleague Lirandzu Themba was at that event in Johannesburg today, and we're going to reflect on what was said, but perhaps also some of the tonality around it. Maybe as a starting point, why did he call this briefing in the first place?
Well, the former minister, Jeremy, alluded to the fact that there was obviously the 10-day mourning period, and he wanted to respect that. And after that, he wanted to comment because he felt like, one, the documentary was one-sided. He wasn't given an opportunity to react on the allegations that were leveled against him. But more than anything, he felt like they were not just one of the untruths, but he mentioned 5 chilling untruths that he wanted to put on record. But he did obviously elaborate more on the one that he's been pinned at. And
the allegation is that he confirmed that there was a probe into Winnie-Madikizela-Mandela's role in Stompie Sipe's death, but not aimed at vilifying her. And that was one of the principal allegations that was leveled against him in that documentary.
And of course that he's the one who initiated that probe. He's obviously saying that he's not the person who asked for it. He did know about it because of his ministry at the time. He was the Minister of Safety and Security. He did say that it was Tony Leon who asked for the probe. And
leader of the Democratic Party, as it was known at the time.
Correct. He's the one who asked for the probe. He's the one who approached George Fivers asking him to reopen this thing. And we do know that George Fivers did mention this in the TRC in 1997, and this is when the former minister is saying, what is happening with our listening skills? Fivers does mention that not only did they not find any evidence that's linking Winnie to the murder, but that he was approached by Tony Leon. So those are the very same things that the former minister was really alluding to this press conference.
Now, it was an extraordinary news conference because it went on for a long time. It was over 2 hours. Within that conference, there was almost a conference within a conference that was then stopped. Then there was an altercation outside between Mufamadi's lawyer and the producer of the film. Then a long and extended interview and assertions by one of the journalists who has been named as being part of this Stratcom organization. So try and make some sense of all of that for me.
You really can't make this up, Jeremy. First of all, it was an hour that we heard from the former minister explaining himself, explaining to the country where he stands with this. But it was also the likes of Thandeka Ngqubule who were in the audience who asked the questions, the very important questions that still remain up to today.
She was a young journalist at the time who in fact broke, if I'm not mistaken, the Stratcom story, and I think she was working for the Weekly Mail newspaper as it was then.
That's correct, and she also emphasizes that not only did she break the story, but she will not divulge who her sources are, but she does say that her sources were the very community members that were concerned about the activities of the Mandela Football Club that Madikizela-Mandela was warned against for very many times, but really did not disassociate herself with that. But of course, it was when we were talking to Pascal Lamsha, where we just saw the eruption, really.
She's the producer of this movie.
Correct.
Yeah.
She was also present. She also asked many questions to the former minister, who tried really to answer many of them. But the one question that she did also ask was, former minister, were you at the funeral of Winnie-Madikizela-Mandela? We all know now, after he answered that question, that he wasn't, citing that he was not feeling well on that specific day. But it was when she was really just telling the media about where she stands, how credible the documentary still is, even though she wasn't able to get any responses from the former minister, that the former minister really walked in and interrupted that session, saying that you did not pay for this, therefore you have no right to hold an impromptu press briefing. And of course, if you did want to, iron things out, you could have at least called me. So that is when we were shifted out of that venue and taken outside, where we continued to obviously ask the questions to Lamsha about why she did not get the response. Why did she not follow really basic journalism procedures, which is just a right of reply?
And she did concede that she perhaps erred in that respect.
She does. She does say that she should have done it. I mean, in the interview with my colleague Tulasizo Similani, she even cites that there was lack of funding. That's one of the reasons why she was not able to call the minister. And of course, he doesn't buy that. There's a deputy minister, the former minister. He absolutely feels that it could have been done deliberately. More so that the narrative that Tony Leon was a person who actually asked for this investigation has been in the public domain for the longest time, but yet this Hank Hellinger, who keeps on saying that it was actually Mufamadi who did this, keeps on going about, and this of course is a problem for the former minister.
There's just one other issue, just in terms of the claims that he was responding to, that I want to discuss. One of the things that I think surprised people in this documentary was that the ANC gave Nelson Mandela at the time an ultimatum to divorce Winnie-Madikizela-Mandela. What did he say in that respect?
One of the chilling untruths, right? He even shook his head when he responded to that, saying the ANC will not interfere in a private space. There was no such ultimatum. And of course, that is what we saw in the documentary, where it states that Mandela was given that ultimatum that you basically cut her off or you forfeit being a president.
Lirandzu Themba, thank you very much indeed at that Mufamadi briefing.